Hi guys, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my Aroid potting mix, or my well draining or quick draining potting mix that I use for my plants. And I also have a plant that I need to repot. The soil mixture that I use is a mixture of a lot of different things, because I tend to overwater my plants, and so I like to have very well draining soil, maybe a little bit more well draining than they should be, but it works for my plants, and so this is what I use. And I'm just going to get right into sharing with you exactly what it is that I use and how I determine that these are the things that I like to use in my soil. The main component of my mixture is going to be orchid bark or bark of some type. Sometimes I use mulch. I just have to treat it very well before I use it. I treat this as well. I treat it by pouring really hot water through the pot. I put it in a well draining pot, and I just pour really hot water onto it, and I do that about 3 times to make sure there is nothing inside of the orchid bark as well as the soils. And so for this bark right here, I wet this 3 days ago, and so right now I'm going all the way down to the bottom, and there's very little moisture in this pot, and so I know that this is what I have to use in order to keep my soil from just getting entirely or staying entirely too moist. This works really well. Next I have my cocoa, and this is something that was for starter plants, and so there are a couple of pieces of leca in here because I just mixed it in when I was cleaning it, and I was pouring the hot water in there. But for this was wet 3 days ago as well, and there is some moisture down in the pot, but it is nothing that would be too much for my plants if it was sitting in this. And so I really like this. But mixed with these cocoa chips, it's perfect so that I can have something that will hold on to moisture for the roots of my plants, but then at the same time it is not going to become compact like a brick, because the cocoa tends to get really compact and it will just start to suffocate the roots, and so I don't want that to happen. Now the other thing that I put in there is this is a mixture of items that I use. This is a soil mixture, and it is already very airy, but it holds on to a little bit more moisture than I want it to. And so I don't like to use too much of this, but I am going to use this because the plant that I am going to be repotting today is a Monstera. And so I know it wants to have a little bit of moisture in the roots, but it does not want to be sitting in water. So finding that balance is really difficult. I wet this 3 days ago as well, and it has a lot more moisture in it than I would want it to have with the way that I water my plants. In a small pot, this would be fine, but for a bigger pot, this right here would just be entirely too wet for too long. But it will keep my cocoa from compacting into a brick, and as well as this right here, they'll just keep it from compacting into a brick, but then the other two will stop this soil mixture from staying too wet. So it's just a balance of the 3. And then I am also going to add in some perlite, and I actually have to go and treat this because I didn't de-dust this perlite right here. I thought I had a little bit more that I have already reduced from the dusting agent that's inside of it. And the other thing I will be using are some lava rocks. I'm going to use the lava rocks at the bottom of the pot that I'll be using. I like for the bottom of my pot to be extremely airy, and rocks definitely do that. I have a pot that I put holes in the bottom. I like clear pots for my plants because I can see exactly what they need or whatever's going on with their roots, and so I'm going to be using this. This is actually a pet container, but a pet container for snacks and things like that. But I'm going to be using it for my pot. I put one really large hole in the middle, and then I have some small ones on the side. So I start off by putting the lava rocks right at the bottom, and I have just enough to just cover the bottom of the pot. And I'm just going to put on my protective gear right now. So I used all of the cocoa, I used all of the orchid bark. I'm going to use half of the cocoa. And I'm going to use half of the soil mixture. Maybe a little less than half. Now I'm just going to pour in the perlite. Nice and airy. Now, as far as the plant that I will be replanting, this is what I will be replanting, and this has needed to be repotted. I've had this plant for about a year now, and you can see here she is. She has an extremely long vine, and she is definitely focusing her growth on the base right now, which is wonderful. I love that. The leaves are nice and big, and she's fabulous. I've had it sitting on a on my dresser in my bedroom, and the trail was on my window going across my curtains. I may end up putting it back like that. I'm just dumping out the old soil. I think the roots may be attached to the bottom. Boy, this root ball is really big. I don't know if this is going to fit in here. Now this is why I knew I needed to change the soil out, because when I repotted this a very long time ago, I was not using bark in my mixture, and perlite holds on to a lot of moisture, so it made me nervous. It doesn't get compact, but it does make me nervous when it comes to the soil staying too moist, especially for a Monstera, because the Monsteras want to have the moisture, of course, to grow, but they do not want to sit in water. And this hasn't been watered, so the roots look pretty good. But there are a lot of roots. And I do not want this plant to go into shock, so I'm just going to put some of my soil mixture in here, and I'm going to water it, because it definitely shows signs of needing some water. So this is the bed it will be sitting on top of. Just make sure I examine the roots, make sure there are no trouble spots in here. I wonder if I should cut this piece right here off that's yellow. Looks good. But it does have a ton of roots. Let's get rid of this bag right here. This is really a small pot for this. Let's see if we can just feed some of this in and around the roots. The only thing is, I wanted this to sit a little bit deeper in the pot. Let's see if we can still do it. I think my pot was just a little too small to begin with. There's a bird tweeting outside of my door, but oh, it's a robin. Huh. I see new growth points on this. I think I'm gonna have to stake this. But if I just put it back up the way it was, I won't have to stake it. But you see how I can just see everything going on in here? I love that. Okay, so I'm just going to, first of all, clean up this mess. Okay, and now I'm going to give it a nice water. Okay, it's draining nicely. And I think I will end up just putting this right back where it was in the beginning, because I don't want to cut this. I don't have any place to put these. If I have just like so many propagations, I won't have any place to put them. In the summertime, it's a little bit different because I can just put them outside. But I think I will just end up just taking it and putting it right back where it was in my window, and then just taking the trails and trailing it around the top of the window. Because I love the way these really big leaves down here look, but they definitely needed to be repotted. I didn't realize that they were a little bit yellow. So now I see. But I think this will be perfectly fine now that it's not in that soil that's so compact and holding entirely too much water. And so it was making me nervous to water it because I was afraid that I would end up overwatering it and it would just be sitting in a big tub of water. Although this definitely has enough roots to absorb all of the water that I need for it to absorb, but you know, you just get so nervous. So I think I'll leave it. I've cut this thing so many times. I've cut it, I've shared it with my mother-in-law, I've shared it with a neighbor, I shared it with someone on Facebook Marketplace, and each time I cut a significant amount of the product of this plant off. I've definitely cut it so many times, but of course that's just, but it's not making it branch out into different directions. It's still on that one stem. So the branches at the bottom happened when I put it around my window. All of a sudden it was just branching out. It has so many branches, and as I was repotting, I noticed that it had a couple new spots that it's going to be branching out from. So that's really, really cool. I love it. This is so beautiful. Okay, so that's that. So Brittany, this is the potting soil that I use in order to have a very, very easy draining soil for my plants. I use this for my pothos. I use this for my Monstera. I use it for just about everything that I have. I actually have a couple of other plants that I need to change the soil on, and now that I have this mixture sitting right here, I'm just going to do those as well. Not on camera, but I will do those as well. And but if you have any questions, this works. This mixture does work for me. And again, I'm not an expert as much as I'm just sharing with you the things that have been working for me with my plants. And this is just one of the things that have definitely changed how things happen with my plants, because like I said, I do tend to overwater. Okay, thank you again for joining me today, guys. I really appreciate you stopping by. And if you subscribed, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Bye, guys.